Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality. While listening, you'll be exposed to inspiring, empowering, and unifying perspectives that I'm highly confident will yield stellar results in your life if you opt to try them on for size. Also, at Optimistic.tv, we have officially begun releasing the first few episodes of our new late-night style, consciousness-elevating video variety talk show, Optimistic, which features live visionary art, soul share interviews, retreat guests here at the Mystic Manor, as well as live musical performances. I'm also super excited to announce that we are currently making plans to release the rest of Season 1 on my personal favorite online streaming service. So stay tuned to Optimistic.tv to follow the unfolding development of this exciting Optimistic expansion, as we'll be posting more info and release dates there soon. And in the meantime, be sure to check out, of course, the first few episodes at Optimistic.tv as well. All right, all you positive heads, welcome, welcome. It is a magical Monday here in the studio, and so grateful to be with you guys. As always, I have a really interesting topic to talk about today, one that I think really it definitely serves you if you're leading people. And you know, some of us, maybe some of you out there have a big company or something where you have a bunch of employees. Other of you are just leading your children or your, partner or someone that looks up to you in your life. So we all at different times and different capacities step into a leadership capacity, right? And so one of the things that has been brought to my attention in the past many times, but it really sunk in the other day when my partner Karen said something that, she's a speech therapist, and that they talk about with getting the clients who, a lot of times they're people with special needs or autism or, someone who's suffered a stroke or something like that, where they're learning to communicate again, or learning from since birth to communicate in ways that they haven't been able to before. And one of the things that she said that is commonly used in her field is the idea of inspiring, not requiring. She said, inspire, don't require. And that really stunk. That really didn't stink out at me. It stuck out to me as something that is just, wow, what a powerful idea, to inspire, not require. And as a leader who has certainly, I've taken the role of a leader most of the time in my life, whether it's, friends as a child or, I've had hundreds of employees at this point, or, acting in a leadership capacity with this show. And something it got me reflecting on this whole idea of inspiring, not requiring. And I realized how much much of my success has come from being inspirational, right? In spirit, in that state of excitement and tapped into something that really motivates people who are around. And how much of the time I've been in the state of, very cerebrally, okay, here's the plan. Here's what we do. Here's what you need to do. Here's your role. Here's, and as I reflected back on the times I've been inspirational versus the times I've been required something of someone, it really was like a big wow. This is something that I have definitely flubbed up many times. And really it's like many things in our life. Until it becomes conscious, you sometimes you do get it right, sometimes you get it wrong, and it just depends on where you were at in that moment. Versus it's kind of like creating unconsciously versus creating consciously. Once you understand that the way you can get people to feel good about taking action and following your lead whenever you're in a leadership capacity is through inspiration, not requirement. Now you can be very aware of the difference, right? And how to empower others and therefore empower yourself and what it is that you're trying to accomplish, right? So inspiring, not requiring. People, and I'm going to share a TED Talk, a short TED Talk here in a few minutes with Simon Sinek. Some of you guys might know of Simon Sinek, and it's from about 10 years or so ago, but it's called How Great Leaders Inspire Action. But what he talks about in this is people will take your cause and make it your own if they're inspired. And isn't that a relief to know? All I need to do is get to the why. Why am I so passionate about this? What is it am I trying to accomplish? And it goes back to everything we talk about on the show, that which is like unto itself is drawn, right? So when you are resonating with the reason for your actions and the inspiration behind your actions without so much of the more logical, okay, here's the plan, here's what you're doing, here's what I'm going to do, and if you do it properly, then I'm happy with you. And if you don't, then I'm coming down on you. And so, I know for a lot of parents out there, it's like, oh, wow, hold on. Let me think back on, have I been inspiring my children or have I been requiring my children? And if you can really get them to see your cause and it becomes a mutual cause, people are, they've even found money is not the biggest motivators, right? For work. It is feeling like they really have a purpose. And if you are constantly sharing your purpose, you're just going to attract those who are in resonance with your purpose. And as a result, you're going to, get the results that you actually seek. So this is a huge revelation. And it's something that, some of you may have heard before. I know I've heard some things surrounding this many times with Simon Sinek, for example, who we're about to, I've heard of, his whole idea of what's your why, and what's great about all these things, all these lessons, all this growth that we're all embarking on together is you can hear something 100 times and it's that 101st where it sinks in a different way. And once you fully get this, I think you will agree with me. It makes no sense to approach things from a, sort of forcing someone. I've heard it said before, like, or I've seen a diagram before where it shows the difference between, the two different types of leaders. Or a real leader is out in front, actually pulling, leading the charge. Let's say if you're pulling a wagon, they're out in the front pulling, versus someone who is this type of requiring action leader, the more authoritarian type, right? They're sitting on the back of the wagon with a whip, kind of, making everyone else do it. So be the type of leader who is inspiring people with your actions, right? And not demanding from people. And at the end of the day, it's what kind of results are you trying to get, right? And on top of that, what's great when we're in this inspirational state, how much better do we feel than when we're being very analytical and looking at things very, without a lot of heart baked into it, without a lot of feeling baked into it and meaning baked into it. So, yeah, I think this is a very, very powerful. And like I said, it certainly applies to people who are in a leadership capacity, but we all take on a leadership role at different times in our life, even if it's, some more than others, certainly. But it's something that I think just across the board, we can all learn and grow from. Why it's important, knowing why it's important to be in an inspirational state, right? So with that being said, I'm going to play here for a few minutes. How Great Leaders Inspire Action. This TED Talk, it's a little dated. Even some of the references you'll hear, it's funny or dated. It's going back. This was from 2010, but the message is certainly as relevant as ever. I found this on the TED YouTube page. Simon Sinek is the guy you hear talking. Take a listen.
So where do you start when you have a program that's about integrating life's passions? Well, you start with why. Why? And that kicks us off for the first speaker tonight, Simon Sinek, in his talk, Start with Why.
We assume even We know why we do what we do. But then how do you explain when things don't go as we assume? Or better, how do you explain when others are able to achieve things that seem to defy all of the assumptions? For example, why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet, they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in a pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out controlled powered manned flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered manned flight, and the Wright brothers beat them to it? There's something else at play here. About 3.5 years ago, I made a discovery, and this discovery profoundly changed my view on how I thought the world worked, and it even profoundly changed the way in which I operate in it. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You ready to buy a computer from me? All I did was reverse the order of the information. People don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat-screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat-screen TVs. They've been making flat-screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one. Dell came out with MP3 players and PDAs. And they make great quality products, and they can make perfectly well-designed products, and nobody bought one. In fact, talking about it now, we can't even imagine buying an MP3 player from Dell. Why would you buy an MP3 player from a computer company? But we do it every day. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. Here's the best part. None of what I'm telling you is my opinion. It's all grounded in the tenets of biology, not psychology, biology. If you look at a cross-section of the human brain, looking from the top down, what you see is the human brain is actually broken into three major components that correlate perfectly with the golden circle. Our newest brain, our Homo sapien brain, our neocortex, corresponds with the what level. The neocortex is responsible for all of our rational and analytical thought and language. The middle two sections make up our limbic brains, and our limbic brains are responsible for all of our feelings, like trust and loyalty. It's also responsible for all human behavior, all decision-making, and it has no capacity for language. In other words, when we communicate from the outside in, yes, people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features and benefits and facts and figures. It just doesn't drive behavior. When we communicate from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior, and then we allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. This is where gut decisions come from. You know, sometimes you can give somebody all the facts and your figures, and they say, I know what all the facts and details say, but it just doesn't feel right. Why would we use that verb? It doesn't feel right. Because the part of the brain that controls decision-making doesn't control language. And the best we can muster up is, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Or sometimes you say you're leading with your heart or you're leading with your soul. Well, I hate to break it to you, those aren't other body parts controlling your behavior. It's all happening here in your limbic brain, the part of the brain that controls decision-making and not language. But if you don't know why you do what you do, and people respond to why you do what you do, then how will you ever get people to vote for you or buy something from you, or more importantly, be loyal and want to be a part of what it is that you do? Again, the goal is not just to sell people who need what you have. The goal is to sell to people who believe what you believe. The goal is not just to hire people who need a job. It's to hire people who believe what you believe. I always say that, you know, there's if you hire people just because they can do a job, they'll work for your money. But if you hire people who believe what you believe, they work for you with blood and sweat and tears. And nowhere else is there a better example of this than with the Wright brothers. Most people don't know about Samuel Pierpont Langley. And back in the early 20th century, the pursuit of powered man flight was like the dot-com of the day. Everybody was trying it. And Samuel Pierpont Langley had what we assume to be the recipe for success. I mean, even now, when you ask people, why did your product or why did your company fail? And people always give you the same permutation of the same three things. Undercapitalized, the wrong people, bad market conditions. It's always the same three things. So let's explore that. Samuel Pierpont Langley was given $50,000 by the War Department to figure out this flying machine. Money was no problem. He held a seat at Harvard and worked at the Smithsonian and was extremely well connected. He knew all the big minds of the day. He hired the best minds money could find, and the market conditions were fantastic. The New York Times followed him around everywhere, and everyone was rooting for Langley. And how come we've never heard of Samuel Pierpont Langley? A few hundred miles away in Dayton, Ohio, Orville and Wilbur Wright. They had none of what we consider to be the recipe for success. They had no money. They paid for their dream with the proceeds from their bicycle shop. Not a single person on the Wright brothers' team had a college education, not even Orville or Wilbur. And the New York Times followed them around nowhere. The difference was Orville and Wilbur were driven by a cause, by a purpose, by a belief. They believed that if they could figure out this flying machine, it'll change the course of the world. Samuel Pierpont Langley was different. He wanted to be rich, and he wanted to be famous. He was in pursuit of the result. He was in pursuit of the riches. And lo and behold, look what happened. The people who believed in the Wright brothers' dream worked with them with blood and sweat and tears. The others just worked for the paycheck. And they tell stories of how every time the Wright brothers went out, they would have to take 5 sets of parts because that's how many times they would crash before they came in for supper. And eventually, on December 17th, 1903, the Wright brothers took flight. And no one was there to even experience it. We found out about it a few days later. And further proof that Langley was motivated by the wrong thing, the day the Wright brothers took flight, he quit. He could have said, "That's an amazing discovery, guys, and I will improve upon your technology." But he didn't. He wasn't first. He didn't get rich. He didn't get famous. So he quit. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And if you talk about what you believe, you will attract those who believe what you believe. Well, why is it important to attract those who believe what you believe? Something called the law of diffusion of innovation. And if you don't know the law, you definitely know the terminology. The first 2.5% of our population are our innovators. The next 13.5% of our population are our early adopters. The next 34% are your early majority, your late majority, and your laggards. The only reason these people buy touch-tone phones is because you can't buy rotary phones anymore. We all sit at various places at various times on the scale, but what the law of diffusion of innovation tells us is that if you want mass market success or mass market acceptance of an idea, you cannot have it until you achieve this tipping point between 15 and 18% market penetration, and then the system tips. And I love asking businesses, what's your conversion on new business? And they love to tell you, oh, it's about 10%, proudly. Well, you can trip over 10% of the customers. We all have about 10% who just get it. That's how we describe them, right? That's like that gut feeling, oh, they just get it. The problem is, how do you find the ones that just get it before you're doing business with them versus the ones who don't get it? So it's this here, this little gap, that you have to close, as Geoffrey Moore calls it, crossing the chasm. Because you see, the early majority will not try something until someone else has tried it first. And these guys, the innovators and the early adopters, they're comfortable making those gut decisions. They're more comfortable making those intuitive decisions that are driven by what they believe about the world and not just what product is available. These are the people who stood online for 6 hours to buy an iPhone when they first came out, when you could have just walked into the store the next week and bought one off the shelf. These are the people who spent $40,000 on flat-screen TVs when they first came out, even though the technology was substandard. And by the way, they didn't do it because the technology was so great. They did it for themselves. It's because they wanted to be first. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do simply proves what you believe. In fact, people will do the things that prove what they believe. The reason that person bought the iPhone in the first 6 hours, or stood in line for 6 hours, was because of what they believed about the world and how they wanted everybody to see them. They were first. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So let me give you a famous example, a famous failure and a famous success of the law of diffusion of innovation. First, the famous failure. It's a commercial example. As we said before a second ago, the recipe for success is money and the right people and the right marketing conditions, right? You should have success then. Look at TiVo. From the time TiVo came out about 8 or 9 years ago to this current day, they are the single highest quality product on the market. Hands down, there is no dispute. They were extremely well funded. Market conditions were fantastic. I mean, we use TiVo as a verb. I TiVo stuff on my piece of junk Time Warner DVR all the time. But TiVo is a commercial failure. They've never made money. And when they went IPO, their stock was at about $30 or $40 and then plummeted, and it's never traded above 10. In fact, I don't think it's even traded above 6, except for a couple of little spikes. Because you see, when TiVo launched their product, they told us all what they had. They said, we have a product that pauses live TV, skips commercials, rewinds live TV, and memorizes your viewing habits without you even asking. And the cynical majority said, we don't believe you, we don't need it, we don't like it, you're scaring us. What if they had said, if you're the kind of person who likes to have total control over every aspect of your life, boy, do we have a product for you. It pauses live TV, skips commercials, memorizes your viewing habits, etc., etc. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, and what you do simply serves as the proof of what you believe. Now let me give you a successful example of the law of diffusion of innovation. In the summer of 1963, 250,000 people showed up on the Mall in Washington to hear Dr. King speak. They sent out no invitations, and there was no website to check the date. How do you do that? Well, Dr. King wasn't the only man in America who was a great orator. He wasn't the only man in America who suffered in a pre-civil rights America. In fact, some of his ideas were bad, but he had a gift. He didn't go around telling people what needed to change in America. He went around and told people what he believed. I believe, I believe, I believe, he told people. And people who believed what he believed took his cause and they made it their own, and they told people. And some of those people created structures to get the word out to even more people. And lo and behold, 250,000 people showed up on the right day, on the right time to hear him speak. How many of them showed up for him? 0. They showed up for themselves. It's what they believed about America that got them to travel on a bus for 8 hours to stand in the sun in Washington in the middle of August. It's what they believed, and it wasn't about black versus white. 25% of the audience was white. Dr. King believed that there are 2 types of laws in this world, those that are made by a higher authority and those that are made by man. And not until all the laws that are made by man are consistent with the laws that are made by the higher authority will we live in a just world. It just so happens that the civil rights movement was the perfect thing to help him bring his cause to life. We followed not for him, but for ourselves. And by the way, he gave the I have a dream speech, not the I have a plan speech. Listen to politicians now with their comprehensive 12-point plans. They're not inspiring anybody. Because there are leaders and there are those who lead. Leaders hold a position of power or authority, but those who lead inspire us. Whether they're individuals or organizations, we follow those who lead not because we have to, but because we want to. We follow those who lead not for them, but for ourselves. And it's those who start with why that have the ability to inspire those around them or find others who inspire them. Thank you very much.
So I love how he breaks down this golden circle, the why, the how, and the what, right? And instead of what, how, why, right? It's like so many things in our life that are backwards. You know, I always talk about do, have, be versus be, have, do, right? Most people are doing something like work in order to have something like money, in order to be something like happy, when really being something like happy has you having and doing the things that are a reflection of that, right? It's the same kind of thing. So many times in our life, we are just doing things backward, and this is another great example of that. So what is your why? What is your purpose? That instantly stirs people around you and is going to attract those who align with that. And now they're self-motivated. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, right? Whether they're buying something from you or just taking action or following your lead to go on a hike today or whatever it is. The goal is to interact with the people who believe what you believe, right? And this is, as he pointed out, this isn't just all brain. This is biology. This is like, resonating throughout your entire being when you touch people in this way. And I love how he says, the what, which most people lead with, it just proves what you believe. The law of diffusion of innovation he talked about, that's very interesting. I can see that all the time with something. If I go and, post, optimistic is a great example. The amount of people who are like, oh, interesting. Okay, whatever. Let's see if other people watch or are interested. And then you get those early adopters, and then you get to the majority. And then, once someone has the majority out there, we all know things that we scratch our head like, how is this music popular or the show popular? Because it reached past that tipping point he was talking about. And it's very interesting. I know we have a very exciting new announcement coming very soon, maybe within days, about where Optimistic is going to be released. We've released the first few episodes self-release, and now it's going to be on a major platform. 99%, which is why I'm not fully saying yet. But how many more early adopters will we get because they're like, oh, hold on, it's got a stamp of approval from this other thing. Now I believe in it. Now I'm behind it. That's how humanity works. It's very odd to me because I've always been an innovator and an early adopter in things, but that's not. There's the majority. The majority are early majority, late majority, and laggards, right? As he talked about. That's like 80% or whatever, more than 80%. So understanding how things work out there is going to really give us an advantage, and also not to take things personally, and to just understanding how we all function. I love how he said, talking about Martin Luther King, he gave the I have a dream speech, not the I have a plan speech. Oh my gosh, the amount of times I've talked about my plan, even though I'm a huge dreamer, even still, I've talked about my plans so many times. And man, this really sinks in, like, wow, lead with the dream, lead with the why, lead with the inspiration. There are those leaders that have authority and those that lead to inspire us. And those ones that inspire us get the results. This is just such a hack for all of us to get more results in our life. It is the path. And that's really what this show is all about, right? Is figuring out what is the path to get the results that we want in our life. And this is a place where I think we've just missed the mark many, many times. And a lot of it, the examples that's been said, has just been wrong. Surprise, surprise, right? We follow those who lead not because we have to, but because we want to. And I appreciate all of you who want to support this dream. It has been one that has just continued to unfold and continued to shape, shift, morph. And I appreciate you coming along for the ride and making it your cause too. And we're doing it together, guys. We're making a difference. And the more of us that understand this, the better off the world is going to be. And with that being said, I have a song to leave you guys with. This is by an artist named Ill Lo, who I played not too long ago. This song is called Rain. And I love this artist. Hope you do too. Until next time, journey well. Love you all so much. And if you're feeling the call to come for a week retreat style Mystic Manor immersion, remember to go now and book your time to speak with me directly about stepping into the optimistic vortex at calendly.com/talkwithbrandon while there are still spots left. Otherwise, I look forward to co-creating magic with you at the Mystic Manor.